Hey guys, tonight we're following a trail that begins with a smell you will never forget. It's early morning in suburban Denver, October, chill settling in. The kind that pinches your ears and fogs your breath. You're out for a walk, maybe because you couldn't sleep. Maybe because fall mornings feel like borrowed time. The world's quiet, the birds haven't fully committed yet, and then something stops you. It's the smell, not the damp leaves, not the usual whiff of trash bins after a holiday weekend. No, this is sour, thick, wrong. A smell you don't so much breathe as taste. You follow it, almost involuntarily, toward an abandoned lot where the old Donnelly's hardware store used to be. Concrete cracked like bad knees, weeds punching through the pavement like they're mad at the world. And then you see it just sitting there in the corner, like it belongs, a dark green tarp. Duct taped shut. You don't want to get closer. You already know what it is. Your stomach knows before your brain can catch up. And hey, here's your reality check. You probably won't survive this episode with your faith in humanity fully intact. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop your location and local time in the comments. I always love knowing where you're listening from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You don't stick around after calling the cops. You can't. But word spreads fast. By noon, everyone in Denver seems to know the tarp held the decomposed body of Melissa Grant, single mother, steakhouse owner. Known for her mile-wide smile and signature whiskey-glazed ribeye, she'd been missing 16 days. Most people thought she ran off. She didn't. She had been left there, folded into a plastic wrap nightmare, like yesterday's garbage. Now, let's zoom out. Denver's no stranger to weird crime. In 1975, a whole family vanished from Cheeseman Park. Historians still argue whether it was foul play or just one very successful disappearance. But Melissa's case hit different. This was personal, local. She was one of us. And then came the whispers. Not from the police, from the people who saw the security footage, the ones who remembered the guy who always came to fix the AC unit at her steakhouse. Nice guy, polite, had a kid on the way, Ethan Riley. You probably walked past 100 Ethans this week, wore a fleece vest, drove a truck with a squeaky belt, said ma'am and held doors, the kind of guy you want to trust. Because the world runs smoother when you assume he's harmless. Which is why this tarp and what they found inside it hit so hard. Let's pause here for a moment. Did you know that during the 14th century in England, the legal definition of murder included something called malice aforethought? It meant a person didn't need to feel rage or act impulsively, just quietly plan. That legal phrase still exists. And sometimes, it wears khakis and goes home to a wife who's 6 months pregnant. So you're starting to piece it together. Police are already circling. Melissa's phone records show the last text sent was to him. Surveillance shows him a receipt for industrial poison surfaces with his signature, and the kicker, a smudge of red wine on Melissa's dining table, a dinner for two. No struggle, no noise, just a woman who trusted someone enough to let them in. You can feel the cold in your chest now, and it's only the beginning. You rewind the clock, 16 days earlier. It's a Thursday night, just before the cold really settles into Denver's bones. You're standing outside Grant's Prime Cut, Melissa's steakhouse tucked between a yoga studio and a dry cleaner. The neon sign flickers half-lit, like it's deciding whether to keep going. Inside, the last table clears out. The kitchen hums with final clatters. You can almost smell that buttery char from the grill one last time before it fades into grease-slicked silence. Melissa moves through the restaurant with calm efficiency, wiping menus, locking up the cash drawer, tossing a half-burned citronella candle into the trash like it wronged her. Her staff has already left. She told them she'd close up tonight. Just one of those nights where she wanted some time alone. Or maybe not quite alone. You follow her as she dims the lights and heads into the office. She checks her phone. One unread message from Ethan. Still okay to stop by. Just need 10 baht. She doesn't reply, but she doesn't delete it either, just stares. Then, with a small exhale, the kind that lets go of hesitation, she texts back. Doors open. Back patio. Now, you don't know what kind of relationship they had. Historians still argue whether Melissa was secretly involved with Ethan or if she just saw a struggling guy and tried to help. But something about the way she pours 2 glasses of wine suggests familiarity, and not the kind you advertise. The dinner she sets out is small, just leftover filet, some roasted vegetables. It's casual, but thoughtful. There's a quiet anticipation to her movements, like she's preparing for something to change. You wonder if she'd planned to ask him to stop texting, or to ask for something more. Outside, the wind shifts. The string lights over the patio sway. Then, there he is. Ethan steps in like he's done it 100 times before. He's not nervous, not visibly, just wearing that worn-out fleece and carrying a folded paper tucked in his back pocket. He kisses her cheek. Too familiar, too friendly. You can't quite tell, but it doesn't feel like firsts. They sit. The dinner starts light. Conversation hovers over the usual, his work orders, her new seasonal menu, how Denver's gotten too expensive even for steak. He makes a joke about moving to Boise. She laughs, maybe too hard. She sips her wine. He doesn't. Then, it changes. He pulls out the paper. It's a bill, a final notice. Something about overdue payments. HVAC equipment. Maybe. He shrugs it off like it's no big deal. But you notice his fingers, trembling just slightly, like he's already in a different room. Like part of him is rehearsing something. He leans forward. You ever feel like you're drowning? Mel, you do. Just hearing it. Like you've sat across from someone who suddenly isn't joking anymore. Melissa leans back. Her smile falters. You can almost hear her mental brakes kicking in. Ethan, is everything okay at home? He doesn't answer right away. Instead, he says something soft. You can't quite hear it. But then she stiffens. Her hand tightens around the stem of her wine glass. And that's when you realize she knows something's wrong, and yet she doesn't scream, doesn't get up. Maybe she still believes she can talk him out of whatever's brewing in his head. In ancient Rome, dinner was considered a sacred space convivium, a ritual of trust. You didn't poison someone across a shared table. That would have broken every social code. But here you are, watching that unthinkable rule crack. Ethan reaches into his jacket. Not a gun, not a knife, just a small brown vial. Melissa doesn't even flinch, just stares at him. Ethan, don't. You can't look away. He says he needs money, that he's tired, that his wife's expecting, and he's buried in debt, and that this was never supposed to be the plan. But he's already poured it into her wine, and she's already taken a sip. She coughs once, light, like it went down wrong. Then again, harder. And suddenly, you wish you could rewind again, just one more time. You follow her collapsing body as it hits the floor, limbs stiffening. Wine glass shattering beside her, her eyes wide, not terrified, just confused, like she thought she had more time, like she never believed it would come from him. Ethan doesn't scream, doesn't run, he just kneels, holds her hand, says something you'll never hear, and waits. You're left wondering, was there a moment he thought about calling for help? And if so, how long did that moment last? You wake up the next morning, but Melissa doesn't. Instead, you're in Ethan's garage. The lights are off, but the hum of the beer fridge gives everything a low, uneasy soundtrack. He's sitting on a stool, still in last night's clothes, eyes puffy, hands shaking not from grief, but from the weight of what now. There's a tarp in the corner, folded neatly, and beside it, a roll of duct tape, a pair of gloves, and a bottle of bleach that looks too full for how often he claims to clean. You want to scream, but you're just a passenger here. Outside, a sprinkler hisses on, completely unaware that the man inside just crossed a line he can't uncross. Ethan's wife, Claire, is still asleep upstairs, 7 months pregnant. You catch a glimpse of her baby shower invite on the fridge, glitter letters, little yellow ducks, and the words, "We can't wait to meet you," scribbled in purple ink. Now, rewind again. Go back a couple weeks. You're standing beside Ethan in Melissa's steakhouse, watching him tinker with the thermostat. He's charming. Not in a flashy, movie villain way, just a dad joke. Roll up your sleeves. I got this kind of way. He's the guy who never overcharges, who calls ahead to say he'll be 5 minutes late, who remembers your birthday because it's the same week as his sister's. And when he looks up at Melissa that day, you can't miss it. That flicker, the extra second of eye contact. Maybe Melissa noticed it too. Maybe she liked the attention. Maybe she was just kind. Historians still argue whether she saw Ethan as a friend, a fling, or a future. But whatever it was, it didn't justify what happened, not even close. He started taking longer to fix things, showing up for small jobs she didn't request, bringing her coffees, sharing too much about his home life. Claire's been distant lately. She's excited, but I'm not sure I'm ready. Melissa listened. She always listened. And that, sometimes, is enough rope for a man to hang himself with. You flash forward to Claire's baby shower. You're in her sister's backyard. There are cupcakes shaped like rattles, blue balloons tangled in the branches of an oak tree, and Ethan, standing near the punch bowl, laughing too hard at a story about toddler tantrums. But you see it in his eyes. He's somewhere else. When someone asks where Melissa's been, because she hasn't posted her usual Sunday menu preview, he shrugs. Probably on vacation. She said something about Santa Fe. The lie slides out so easily you nearly forget it wasn't true. Claire grabs his hand, smiles up at him, tells him how excited she is to start this new chapter, and Ethan kisses her forehead like a man who wants to believe he's still good. Did you know that in the Victorian era, pregnant women were discouraged from attending funerals? It was thought the grief would stain the womb. Silly, maybe, but looking at Claire now, laughing with her friends, you realize she has no idea that her whole world is already unraveling. She's planning for a baby. He's planning an alibi. Later that night, he takes out his phone, scrolls through his text history, looks at Melissa's last message. Doors open, back patio. He deletes it, but not before taking a screenshot just in case he needs to remember exactly how it all started. The next few days are a blur for him. He goes to work, smiles at customers, rubs Claire's belly and listens to the heartbeat. Meanwhile, Melissa's body is stashed inside a storage freezer in the back of the restaurant. That's the part no one talks about. That it wasn't just a murder, it was maintenance. He checked on her, made sure the power didn't cut, waited until no one asked questions anymore. And when the time came, he loaded her into the tarp. One last trip, one last smile for the security camera. You ever watch someone drag their past across a parking lot? It's slow, uneven, like even the universe is telling them to stop. But he doesn't. He can't, because the moment passed, and he missed the exit. You're back in the steakhouse kitchen, only now it's quiet in the wrong way. The kind of silence that hums just under the surface, not peaceful, just pretending. Melissa's been missing for 3 days. Her phone's off. Her bank account hasn't moved except for one withdrawal. $8. And you're not the only one who finds that odd. You hover beside Officer Lena Carlisle as she flips through Melissa's financial records. A seasoned Denver detective with a knack for numbers and an allergy to small talk. She squints at the ATM slip. The date is exactly 1 day after Melissa vanished. The branch is close to Ethan's neighborhood, and the withdrawal, maximum limit, cleanly rounded, no follow-up spending. Weird, right? Even weirder. Melissa rarely touched cash, ran her steakhouse with precision, filed quarterly taxes early, never missed payroll. And here's the thing. Surveillance footage at the ATA caught a man in a fleece jacket, hood up, too blurry for a face. But his walk, identical to a guy seen on the steakhouse's outdoor camera. Guess who? You're starting to feel it. The pieces coming together like cold magnets. Meanwhile, Ethan's still playing the part. You watch him at work, leaning over furnaces and sipping vending machine coffee, smiling when he answers the phone, his voice still syrupy and warm, but you catch the cracks. He starts working shorter hours, stops answering calls from certain clients, especially the ones who know Melissa. You follow him home one night. He stands in the driveway for nearly 10 minutes, staring at his front door. His wife's silhouette passes by the window, her hand resting over her belly, and still, he doesn't go in. Now, this might be a good time for a fringe historical gem. Did you know in medieval Scandinavia, it was believed that murderers carried soul rot in their breath? People avoided them even before they confessed, claiming they could smell guilt. Probably nonsense. But watching Ethan pace like his own skin doesn't fit anymore. You sort of get it. Claire's starting to notice too. She finds receipts in his truck. One for gloves, one for heavy-duty trash bags, one for a tarp. She doesn't say anything, not at first, just folds them into her purse like she's folding denial into paper. But things change when she tries to schedule their final prenatal checkup and finds that the clinic already received cancellation paperwork, signed by Ethan. She asks him about it that night. He says it was a mix-up, smiles, holds her hand, says, "We'll call them back tomorrow." And you can almost see at that place in her mind where a tiny crack forms, just a hairline fracture. But it's enough. Let's float back to Melissa's empty house for a moment. There's a vase of dying tulips on the counter. Her daughter's jacket still draped over a kitchen stool. Mail piling up at the front door. No signs of struggle. No sign she packed a bag. Just gone. And yet, for 16 days, no one panics too much. She was independent. Maybe overwhelmed. Maybe she needed space. Historians still argue whether the myth of the disappearing woman is rooted in truth or just cultural laziness. People assuming women walk away more than they're taken. But the truth was sealed under duct tape, and it wasn't until a maintenance worker caught the smell drifting from the back of the walk-in freezer that police finally returned to the steakhouse. Melissa's body wasn't there, but the residue was a faint stain on the floor, the outline of where she had been, and in the trash, a receipt printed 3 weeks ago. One item, sodium nitrite, 500 gallon, industrial grade. The signature, E. Riley. He didn't even try to fake a name. You wonder if that was arrogance or guilt, a quiet desire to be caught. Because the deeper you go, the more it seems like Ethan wasn't running away from something. He was walking toward the end. The only question is, how much damage did he plan to do on the way there? You're sitting at Melissa's old patio table, now half rusted, cushions slightly sunken, imagining the last dinner she ever served. You try to picture it without dread, but the scene replays like a cursed loop. 2 wine glasses, 1 sip too many, 1 smile too trusting, and across from her, Ethan, still in that same fleece, still smiling, still polite. You're with Detective Carlisle again. She's interviewing former employees' waitstaff, dishwashers, a line cook who once walked in on Melissa and Ethan talking very closely in the stockroom. Nothing conclusive, but everyone felt something. "I just thought they were old friends." Someone says, "He was always real helpful," says another, "Almost too helpful." And then there's the phone records. You hover behind Carlisle's desk as she traces call logs and text messages. Ethan and Melissa had exchanged 248 messages over the last month. A few emojis. One late night, "Are you awake?" and a voice memo she sent the day before she vanished. The file's corrupted. No way to play it. You wish you could hear her voice just once. And now, Carlisle's request goes through. Security footage from the alley behind Melissa's restaurant, time-stamped 1/12. On the night she disappeared, you press play. Ethan's truck pulls in, headlights off. He gets out, walks to the back, opens the tailgate. Then, he drags out the tarp, slowly, calmly, adjusts it halfway through, tucks something back in, wipes his hands on his jeans. And here's the thing that burrows under your skin. He never looks nervous, not once, just focused. You pause the footage, rewind it, watch his face again, the way he sets his jaw, like a man carrying out yard work on a Sunday. Historically speaking, there is a term for this kind of behavior. In 19th century French criminology, it was called le sang-froid, cold blood. Not rage, not impulse, just quiet calculation. Carlisle pushes away from her desk. He's not running. He's cleaning up. And with that, a warrant is issued. The next morning, Ethan answers the door in sweatpants. Claire's in the kitchen, pouring cereal. He barely gets out a greeting before the cuffs are on. "Am I being arrested?" "You are now." He doesn't argue, doesn't ask why, just turns to Claire with a look that doesn't quite reach apology. And that's when the cereal bowl falls from her hands. You follow them to the station. The interview room is bare, just 2 chairs, a table, and a flickering overhead light that makes everything look like a crime scene, even before anyone speaks. Ethan sits. Carlisle walks in, drops the file on the table, photos, the receipt, the surveillance still. "Tell me what happened." "Ethan." He leans forward, clasps his hands. Then, "I didn't mean to kill her." That's how it starts. Not "I didn't do it," not "I want a lawyer," just that. And from there, the confession unspools like a thread he's been pulling for days. He says he didn't plan it, not really. He just wanted her to give him the money. He was desperate, cornered. And when she refused, when she laughed, he claims, or maybe just said no too calmly, something in him snapped. But even he admits that buying the poison 2 days earlier wasn't exactly a spur-of-the-moment decision. Historians still argue whether killers like Ethan are born or made, whether it's a gradual cracking or a single fracture. You're starting to believe it's both. And then he says something that chills the room. I just needed a way out, but everything spiraled. You sit there, stunned, as though spiraled explains anything. He poisoned her, hid the body, lied to his wife, staged a withdrawal, hauled a tarp through a dark parking lot. That's not a spiral, that's a blueprint. And yet, he cries, tears fall, his voice shakes, and somehow you feel something but you don't know what. Not sympathy, not pity, just that awful human ache of watching someone try to build a life out of the wreckage they created. You're back in the courtroom now, seated in the last row beneath fluorescent lights that flicker like they've heard every lie ever spoken here. The air smells like old paper and stress. You shift in your seat as the judge enters, robes brushing the floor like thunderclouds. Ethan stands beside his lawyer, looking smaller than usual. He's shaved, wearing a suit that doesn't fit right, too tight at the shoulders, too loose at the neck. It's as if even fabric doesn't want to cling to him anymore. Across the aisle, Claire is clutching her belly. Her due date is just weeks away. You can see her knuckles whitening around a balled-up tissue. The way she blinks like she's trying to wake up from something she can't name. And then, one row behind her, Melissa's daughter, 12 years old, backpack at her feet, cheeks drawn, eyes locked forward in a way no child should know how to do. She doesn't blink. You watch the prosecutor pace slowly, methodically laying out the evidence like a grim bedtime story. Surveillance footage showing Ethan dragging the tarp, text messages, including one that read, "No one has to know. I just need to see you." The poison receipt with his name, bank withdrawals, and finally, Ethan's own confession. The defense tries. Really? They do. They talk about stress, mental health, financial collapse. They paint him as a desperate man, not a malicious one. But it doesn't stick, because desperation doesn't wrap a body in plastic and leave it behind a dumpster. Did you know that during the Middle Ages, poison was considered a woman's weapon? Male killers often rejected it because it was seen as cowardly, too indirect, too feminine. Funny how Ethan chose it anyway. Historians still debate if that's what made his case feel even more chilling, so silent, so clinical. The verdict comes fast. Guilty on all counts. First-degree murder, tampering with evidence, theft, fraud. The judge sentences him to life in prison without the possibility of parole. No gasps, no shouting, just silence. And then Claire sobs. Not a loud, dramatic cry, just that collapsing sound, like a lung deflating. Like the last exhale of belief leaving her body, she holds her belly as if she could somehow shield the baby from the weight of this room. Meanwhile, Melissa's daughter is still staring straight ahead, not crying, not blinking, just existing, like her soul's been temporarily locked in a waiting room. The court empties out slowly. Reporters murmur into phones. Court artists finish shading Ethan's chin. A janitor wipes something off the bench with a sigh. You linger, still not ready to leave, because some stories echo outside the courthouse. Autumn has turned bitter. The air's sharp enough to make your eyes water. Or maybe it's not the air. You follow Claire to her car. She doesn't get in right away, just stands there, hand on the door, staring down at her swollen belly. He was going to name him Miles, she whispers. Said it meant soldier. You don't say anything. What could you say? That sometimes soldiers surrender before the war even begins. That babies don't get to choose their father's shadow. Instead, you just nod. The kind of nod you give when the world has nothing left to offer but grief. Here's a fringe tidbit to chew on. In 17th century Scotland, some courts allowed victims' families to pick the rope used in executions, as if choosing the texture of justice could soften its sting. No such option here. No executions, just Ethan alive, behind bars, breathing the same air as everyone else. And Claire, alone in a parking lot, trying to figure out how to raise a child whose first bedtime story might be about tarps and lies. You drift back to Grant's Prime Cut, the steakhouse Melissa built from scratch, but now it's boarded up. Windows dusty, sign half stripped. Someone scrawled R.I.P. Mel on the plywood in silver Sharpie, and beneath that, a single wilted daisy droops in a cracked mason jar. It hasn't been long, only a month since the trial ended, but the place already feels like it's been gone for years. You step inside not literally, but in memory. Remember the booth with the peeling faux leather? The way the lights used to flicker just slightly above table 6. The low jazz that always played too loud in the bathrooms. It was a neighborhood fixture. Families came here after soccer games. Couples celebrated anniversaries over dry-aged ribeyes. Melissa was always there, apron on, glass of Cabernet in hand, laughing that husky kind of laugh that made you believe everything was going to be okay. Now, you just hear the echo and smell the faintest ghost of garlic butter and old sorrow. The restaurant didn't just close because of the murder. It couldn't go on. No one wanted to sit in a booth where a woman used to smile and joke, knowing what had happened to her just a few feet away. And no one wanted to eat steak cut on the same countertop where Ethan leaned in too close, too often. Here's a historical gut punch. In post-plague Europe, bakeries were among the first businesses to reopen, not because people were ready, but because bread was essential. But a steakhouse, it needs laughter, community, appetite. And Denver had lost all three. The city tried to move on. It always does. Local papers published think pieces on domestic betrayal, workplace boundaries, and the psychology of invisible danger. Podcasters swarmed in. TikTok true crimers stood in front of the lot where the tarp was found, pointing dramatically toward the shadows, like that's where evil lives. But it's not in the shadows. It's in the part where Ethan returned to work the next day. It's in the way he went to Claire's OB appointment 2 days after dumping Melissa's body, holding her hand during the ultrasound, like nothing had happened. It's in the receipts, the silence, the late-night texts. It's in routine. That's where it hides. Melissa's staff scattered. Maya, the hostess, moved to Boulder. Carlos, the line cook, took a job at a diner across town. He won't say her name anymore, just her. As in, her kitchen always smelled like sage, not just food, like actual sage. Even Melissa's dog, Juniper, was adopted by her cousin in Cheyenne. It's like the universe decided to pack everything she touched into boxes and send them away. You check the Yelp page, still up. A review from a year ago reads, Melissa gives hugs with one arm and steaks with the other. Never change. You reread that one 3 times. There's something about grief that lives in repetition. Historians still argue whether ancient mourning rituals like smearing ash on the face or cutting a lock of hair actually helped people heal, or just made the pain easier to spot from a distance. You wish modern grief was that visible. Instead, it's in half-empty dining rooms, deleted contact names, recipes no one dares recreate. You peek through the slats of the boarded-up door one last time, and you swear you can almost see her. Melissa, wiping down a table with a damp rag, hair pulled back, humming off-key to a song no one else hears, the kind of haunting that doesn't come with chains or moans, just a quiet should-have been. Now, you're walking behind a girl with a backpack that's far too big for her shoulders. Melissa's daughter, 12 years old, ponytail loose, jacket half-zipped, earbuds in but no music playing. She moves like someone trying not to take up space, not just physically, but existentially. It's been 6 weeks since her mother was found in the tarp. She's back in school now, technically, but she's not really there. You watch her stare through math problems, skip lunch, avoid eye contact, like it's a language she's forgotten how to speak. Her name is Ava, and Ava now lives with her aunt, who tries God. She tries, but the house smells different. The bedtime stories are different. And no one makes cheesy hash browns the way Melissa did on Sunday mornings. You trail Ava one afternoon after school. She walks past her old home, the one with the overgrown roses and cracked driveway. She doesn't go in, just stands across the street. The porch light still works. It blinks on automatically at dusk. Melissa programmed it that way, just a safety thing. Ava watches it turn on, and then she turns away. Now, here's a historical wrinkle for you. In 1950s America, it became popular to tell children that deceased loved ones went to sleep. Psychologists later warned this phrasing caused sleep anxiety. Kids afraid they'd never wake up again. Ava doesn't have that fear. She has the opposite. She can't sleep at all. Her therapist suggests drawing as a coping tool. So Ava starts sketching at night, quiet outlines of her mom's face. Her smile, the restaurant sign, the backyard with these stupid plastic flamingos. She draws Ethan, too, always with no mouths. Her aunt finds one tucked under her pillow, a picture of Ava holding her mom's hand, standing in front of the steakhouse, except her mom is drawn in grays like she's fading, and Ava, in bright red, with the words I remember scribbled across her chest. It's the kind of art that punches harder than any photograph. You sit with Ava on a school bench one rainy morning. She doesn't say much, just picks at her shoelace until finally she asks, "Do you think she was scared?" You can't answer. Not really. So you tell her what people tell themselves when they have nothing else. "I think she knew you loved her. I think that's what mattered most." She nods once, doesn't look up. You leave her there, staring at the cracks in the pavement like they're hiding secrets. And you wonder, how do you grieve when the story is everywhere? When your mom's name trends on Reddit, when YouTubers reenact the night she died in whispery voices for clicks, Ava can't escape it. Her mother isn't just gone. She's a headline, a case. And Ethan, he's now immortalized in true crime podcasts with titles like The Smiling Killer Next Door. Here's something fringe. In the Victorian era, mourning children were encouraged to wear black armbands so strangers would treat them more gently in public. Ava doesn't wear an armband, but she wears that grief anyway, in the way she doesn't raise her hand in class anymore, in how she triple checks that the door is locked before bed, in how she jumps when men say her name too loudly. You follow her to the cemetery on her mom's birthday. She brings a single balloon silver, heart-shaped, with "Hi." Mom scribbled in Sharpie, no tears, just a quiet, "I'm still here." You want to believe she'll be okay. That time will help. That love will heal. That the wound won't become her personality. Historians still argue whether children exposed to violent loss recover faster because reality hits early or slower, because they lose the luxury of innocence. Ava doesn't argue at all. She just sits by the headstone, waiting, listening, remembering. You walk the streets of Denver now, and everything feels just a little off. It's subtle. A flicker of suspicion when someone says, "Good morning." A second glance when the HVAC guy shows up for a service call. Because after Ethan Riley, people stop trusting the nice ones. You step into a coffee shop near where Melissa's steakhouse used to be. The barista leans over and says, "I knew her. You know, came in every Thursday, always tipped 20%, always asked how I was sleeping." You nod. You've heard versions of this story everywhere. In the library, the librarian remembers how Melissa used to donate children's books. In the park, a mom recalls how Melissa once bought her kid a popsicle when they forgot their wallet. At the DMV, yes, even the DMV clerk says Melissa made them laugh. The city doesn't forget her, but it can't unsee Ethan either. You pass a local mural. It used to be all sunflowers and mountain goats. Now someone spray painted over it. Evil smiles too. Yikes! You keep walking. Past a newsstand still selling tabloid covers with Ethan's mugshot frozen in that weird half smile that used to seem friendly. Now, it just looks like a lie. Let's drift back a bit in history. After the Jack the Ripper murders in Victorian London, police records show a huge rise in false reports. Men accused for walking too slow, smiling at strangers, or owning too many knives. It wasn't justice, it was trauma with a badge. Same here. Neighbors start side-eyeing each other. One woman reports her mailman for being too friendly. Another guy gets questioned just for helping an elderly woman with her groceries. Ethan infected something. He turned friendly into maybe. He turned a handshake into a question mark. And remember that parking lot where Melissa's body was found? The city tried to repave it, cover the cracks, repaint the lines, even installed a bike rack. Didn't work. No one parks there. You walk by and notice people cross the street rather than pass it, like it gives off some kind of invisible toxin, which, honestly, it kind of does. Grief lingers, not like a ghost, like mold, growing in the corners, under the paint, behind the drywall. Even Claire feels it. You visit her apartment, new place, top floor, 2 bedrooms, 1 crib in progress. She stopped answering press inquiries, changed her number, deleted her socials, but she still leaves the porch light on. Old habits die hardest. She tells you she had a dream. Ethan was in it, not violent, just there, sitting at the kitchen table, asking if they still had that blueberry jam he liked. I couldn't speak. She says, I just nodded, and he smiled like it was all okay. You sit with that for a second. Because it isn't just Melissa's memory that haunts this story. It's the almosts. Almost confessed earlier. Almost changed his mind. Almost chose to be better. But almost doesn't mean anything when someone's wrapped in a tarp. You walk past Melissa's old gym, her old grocery store, her kids' bus stop. Everything's still here, except her. Denver becomes a city made of outlines. Places where she was, voices that sound close, smells that almost match her cooking. You remember hearing once that trauma carves neural paths in the brain ruts, where thoughts spiral like rain down a clogged gutter? Denver is spiraling, and that spiral has a name. And it's not Melissa, it's Ethan, the man who always said good morning. You're in Ethan's prison now, not physically, but close enough to feel the cold metal echo of it. Cell block deep, concrete walls the color of regret. Harsh fluorescent lights that hum like a bad conscience. The air smells like antiseptic, dust, and meals no one wants to remember. Ethan's inmate number is stitched across his jumpsuit in dull navy. He's been inside for 8 months now. Hair cropped shorter, face gaunter, but still smiling that same reflexive, default expression that used to make people think he was harmless. You sit across from him in the visitation room, a thick pane of glass between you. He picks up the phone. You don't speak right away, you just look, and he looks back. People still talk about me. You want to say no, that the world moved on, that the city forgot him like a cold sore, but it's a lie. They still talk, and not just because of what he did, but how he did it. No rage, no weapon, just a meal, a smile, and a vial small enough to fit in his coat pocket. That's what keeps people up at night. Ethan tells you he reads now. A lot of history, a lot of theology, trying to figure out what forgiveness means. He says, not just from others, from myself. You ask if he'd do it differently, if he could go back. He pauses. I think I wanted her to stop existing, without realizing what that actually meant. You sit with that. Let it stretch out into silence. Here's a strange historical nugget. In 18th century Germany, there was a belief that confessions without repentance caused soul echoes, a spiritual residue that echoed inside the walls of wherever they were spoken. If that's true, this room's probably screaming. Ethan shifts in his chair. I think about her kid. You watch his eyes harden, maybe with guilt, maybe just discomfort. Sometimes I wonder if he'll grow up and find me one day. You remind him she had a daughter, not a son. He blinks. Right? Her daughter. You write that moment down somewhere in your brain because it's strange, and strange with Ethan usually means something. He asks about Claire. You don't answer because she doesn't want him to know. Claire gave birth to a boy in early spring, named him Miles, like they had once planned, but she doesn't tell anyone that anymore. Just says his name softly, like she's still testing how it feels in the air. She moved again, out of state, new job, new car, baby seat in the back, and not a single photo of Ethan in the house. She tells people the father passed away suddenly. Technically not a lie, just edited. Back in the prison, Ethan leans in. You think people will ever forget, and you realize that's the question that keeps him up at night, not will they forgive me? Not was it wrong? Just will they forget? You wonder if that's part of the punishment. To know your name won't disappear. That your smile is now part of the horror. That every time someone sees a fleece jacket and a polite nod, they flinch for half a second. Historians still argue whether prisons are meant to punish or reform, whether a cage can truly change a person's soul or just trap it long enough for the world to forget. But you can tell Ethan wants to be forgotten, wants to fade out. But that's the thing about crimes like this. They don't fade. They settle into corners, into whispers, into the girl who won't draw mouths on the people who hurt her. You hang up the phone. Ethan doesn't say goodbye, just smiles. And for once, it doesn't work. You're standing in front of a church now, not for a service, just a vigil. A quiet, overcast evening where the candles don't flicker so much as smolder. Melissa's name is printed on laminated cards, passed around by neighbors who still don't know what to say. There's no speech, no sermon. Just faces illuminated by soft, stubborn light. Ava stands near the front, holding a candle that's already dripping onto her fingers. She doesn't flinch. The wax hardens. She keeps holding it anyway. You watch the people closest to Melissa gather: former coworkers, distant cousins, women who sat at her bar and told her too much. They all seem smaller now, as if grief has a gravitational pull. One woman, mid-50s, says softly, "I told her once that her kindness would get her in trouble." You don't ask what she meant. You already know. Because that's the thing about Melissa. She made people feel safe. And when someone like that dies, it's not just a death. It's a rip in the fabric of how we assume the world should work. Let's pause for a strange historical echo. In ancient Greece, public mourners, professional keeners were hired to scream at funerals so that the gods would take notice. Denver doesn't scream, but it remembers, in whispers, at grocery store checkout lines, at the gas station, when someone asks, "Did you hear what happened at that old steakhouse?" At the school fundraiser, where Ava's aunt quietly excuses herself after someone calls Ava that girl. The courtroom is behind you now. The tarp, the confession, the footage. It's all filed in the back of your mind like a documentary you watched once and can't unsee. But the damage moves forward. It always does. Melissa's favorite server, Danny, now writes op-eds about workplace power dynamics. You didn't know he could write. Turns out, grief finds talents like water finds cracks. One of her suppliers, Roy, still delivers to nearby restaurants, but every invoice he prints now has "Be safe" typed at the bottom, like a prayer hidden in plain sight. Even the mayor. Yes, the mayor mentions her at a press conference about small business safety. Melissa Grant was the heart of her block. She says, and hearts, when wounded, leave echoes. It's a nice line. Scripted, sure, but you can tell she means it. The trial transcripts are public now. People quote Ethan's words like scripture. "I just needed a way out, but everything spiraled." That line has become a meme. Printed on shirts, parodied in songs, turned into a ringtone. And Ava, she hears it at school, at the mall, in the halls. They don't even realize who she is. Or maybe they do. Kids are cruel that way. She goes quiet again, stops drawing, stops eating. Her therapist suggests movement, dance, maybe martial arts, anything with rhythm and breath. She chooses swimming, says she wants to feel weightless, and you watch her in the pool goggles on, mouth tight, body slicing through the water like she's trying to leave her shadow in the chlorine. Sometimes that's what healing looks like. Not candles, not speeches, just motion. Just laps. Melissa's name is added to a local memorial for women lost to intimate violence. Her face is etched into glass, smiling, strong, slightly tilted like she's listening, always listening. You visit one day, just stand there. Watch the light pass through her image, and you realize something chilling. Ethan will be forgotten one day. Eventually, maybe not now. Maybe not this year. But Melissa, she won't be. Because the people who loved her, they never stop moving. You find yourself drifting through a city that's trying to heal, but healing is messy. Denver's moved on. Sort of. There's construction happening near the old parking lot. A trendy brunch spot is set to open where the tarp once lay. The developers don't talk about that part. They call the area revitalized. But you can feel it, the kind of revitalization that builds over bones. You pass a local bookstore hosting a true crime reading. The author's written about Ethan. Of course. Chapter 7 is titled The Smile That Lied. Chapter 8, Dinner for 2, Death for 1. The crowd is full, everyone sipping cold brew and nodding solemnly. Ava's aunt hears about the event and files a formal complaint. Not to stop it, but to remind the store there's still a child in this city who reads, "You don't blame her." Ava sees his face everywhere. A thumbnail here, a podcast logo there, and she started having the dream again. The one where her mother is setting the table 2 places, candles lit. Melissa hums softly. Ava asks who's coming to dinner, and her mother smiles but doesn't answer. Then the door creaks open, and Ava wakes up before she sees who enters. Always before. There's a debate in the school district about whether to allow students to leave class when a murder victim's name comes up in curriculum. The motion doesn't pass. Historians still argue whether public memory should protect children from trauma or prepare them for it. Ava's just trying to survive it. She doesn't talk much anymore, but she listens, and she notices things, like how her friends' parents lower their voices when she walks in, like how her counselor says resilient like it's a compliment, not a symptom, like how every good moment now comes with guilt tucked in its pocket. And Claire is still unraveling. She records voice memos on her phone now. Little diary entries from Miles. Today you smiled at the ceiling fan. I needed that. I tried not to think about your father, but someone at work asked if I had family in prison. You're not him. Okay, you're not? She keeps these memos in a locked folder, not because she's hiding them, but because she's not ready to hear them out loud. Miles is crawling now, laughs when she sneezes, cries when she leaves the room. And Claire's doing it. She's parenting, she's loving, she's trying. But sometimes, at night, she stands in the doorway of his room, watching him sleep, and asks herself a question she'll never say aloud. What if he smiles just like him one day? You want to tell her he won't, but you don't know that. No one does. Let's jump back in time for a second. In 12th century Japan, there was a ritual called Naorai, a morning feast held after a funeral where guests deliberately laughed, danced, and told dirty jokes. It was believed that joy confused evil spirits trying to cling to the living. Denver could use a Naorai. Instead, it's got Sunday farmers markets and baristas with true crime podcasts. But joy, it does come back in strange, stubborn ways. One day, Ava brings home a dog from the shelter, a shaggy mutt with ears too big for his body. She names him Pickle. He sleeps at the foot of her bed. He barks at every door knock. And when she dreams of that table again, it's Pickle's barking that wakes her up. Not fear, not a scream, just a dog reminding her that the door is still locked, that she's still here, still trying, still moving. You return to the courthouse steps, but this time there's no trial. No cameras, no angry crowd, just pigeons picking at crumbs, and wind dragging an empty snack wrapper across the pavement like a lazy ghost. Inside, a small plaque has been added to the lobby wall. It doesn't say Melissa's name, too controversial, they claimed, but it says in remembrance of those who placed trust in the wrong hands. You stand in front of it, trying not to roll your eyes. It's sanitized, generic, safe. You know what really happened? Melissa trusted someone. Ethan smiled. And now everyone has to live in the after. You walk downtown and catch sight of someone wearing a shirt that says Team Ava. You're not sure if it's support or a merch drop from a trending podcast. These days, it's hard to tell. Speaking of podcasts, there's a new one now. It's called Quiet Monsters. Their latest episode is titled The Man Who Couldn't Stop Smiling. They played distorted audio from Ethan's confession, remix it under moody music, and add voice actors to reimagine Melissa's last dinner. You wonder if Ava's heard it. You hope she hasn't, but she probably has. Back at school, Ava's learning how to say no. Her aunt enrolled her in a self-defense class. She doesn't punch hard, but she moves with precision, controlled, intentional. You notice how she breathes when she throws a strike. It's not anger, it's focus, because she's learning the opposite of what Ethan took from her mother, control. Here's something from deep historical memory. During the Tang Dynasty in China, when a village lost someone to violence, the women would weave black thread into their hair as a form of protest, silent, defiant mourning, worn in plain sight. Ava doesn't wear black thread, but she wears headphones now. Big ones, music up, voice low. And you can tell she's building something in there, not just a wall, a plan. Her therapist asks if she wants to write letters to her mom. Ava does. She keeps them in a shoebox under her bed, each one folded carefully. You catch glimpses. I found a song that reminds me of your laugh. Sometimes I forget you're gone. I hate that moment when I remember, I hope I'm not making you proud too soon. I want to take my time. She's not healing in a straight line. No one does, but she's not stuck either. Meanwhile, Claire's baby, Miles, takes his first steps on a rainy Thursday. There's a video. He toddles across the living room, arms out like wings, crashing into the couch with a squeal. Claire watches the clip on loop. She laughs, then cries, then laughs again. Grief isn't a process, it's a carousel, round and sometimes too fast. Claire finally deletes Ethan's number. It had been sitting in her phone, not under his name, just listed as. She stares at the contact for a long time. then presses delete. There's no fanfare, no musical sting, just silence. And that silence, it's the loudest relief she's felt in months. Denver is quieter these days, not calmer, just less trusting. People hold eye contact a beat longer, double-check locks, ask follow-up questions like, "And how do you know him? You used to think paranoia was unhealthy. Now, you call it practice." The city doesn't fear monsters under beds anymore. It fears the ones who offer to fix your air conditioner. The ones who smile, say, "Ma'am, hold the door." But here's the twist. Out of that fear, something grows. Not hate, not bitterness, vigilance. Melissa's story doesn't get buried. It gets recycled into trainings, policies, family conversations. And Ava, she stands up in class one day, clears her throat, and presents a project titled "What I Would Change If I Were Mayor." Slide 1. Teach kids how to spot danger even when it looks polite. Her teacher doesn't blink, just nods. And in that small, quiet room, you feel something shift. You're walking through a fall festival now. One of those suburban October events where the pumpkins are overpriced and the cider tastes like sugar and memories. Ava's there, not in costume, not in glitter, just jeans, a hoodie, and a cautious step. Her aunt stays close, giving her space but never letting her out of sight. It's her first big public outing since the trial, and for a moment, it's almost normal. Kids laugh, dogs in pumpkin costumes bark at hay bales. Someone plays acoustic covers of 2000s pop songs on a borrowed sound system, and then someone recognizes her. You see the glance, the whisper, the phone halfway lifted for a photo before the woman thinks better of it. Ava sees it too. She doesn't run. She doesn't flinch. She just turns, walks toward the caramel apple stand, and buys one, bites into it without looking back. You want to applaud, but you don't. You just follow her into the maze of straw and noise. Because here's the thing. Denver has learned to live with the stain, not clean it, not bleach it, live with it. The city holds a candlelight walk on the anniversary of Melissa's death. Hundreds show up, not all knew her. Some just want to say they stood for something that wasn't fear. You catch bits of conversation. "She gave me my first job. She once bought dinner for a whole table of college kids. She was just kind. Did you know that in certain ancient Andean communities, people believed the soul remained near the body for 7 days after death, hovering, lingering, listening? They'd whisper apologies, promises, even jokes to help the soul decide where to go next. Denver's been whispering for a year now, to Melissa, to Ava, to itself, and those whispers are turning into vows. Claire starts volunteering at a support center for women leaving abusive situations. She doesn't tell her full story, not yet, but she listens, holds space, passes tissues, and every so often, she whispers, "It's not your fault. She started sleeping better." Not because it hurts less, but because she finally believes she can make something from the ashes. Miles, now 1.5, calls her Mumum. She tells him about clouds, about owls, about laughter. Not about Ethan, not yet. But one day, she'll decide how that story is told. On her terms, in her time. Ava writes a letter to Melissa for school. It's for an assignment on heroes. She reads it aloud, barely above a whisper. "You made people feel safe. Even when you weren't, you cooked like it was a language. I miss the way you always made me say grace even when I didn't want to. I think I get it now. Grace is what you leave behind when you're gone." Her teacher cries. So does half the room. But Ava doesn't. Not that day. She folds the letter into her notebook like it's something sacred. You walk through Denver again, and you notice the things that stayed. A mural, a recipe pinned to the community board, a scholarship in Melissa's name. The world didn't forget. And Ethan, he's still in prison. But the city stopped talking about him. Stopped saying his name in coffee shops. Stopped replaying his smile on the news. His silence has finally become silence. Historians still argue whether evil should be remembered by name or erased from the story, so the right names echo louder. Denver chose, and it chose Melissa. You walk past a new steakhouse opening near Lodu. Different owner, new name, but same soft lighting, same hum of warmth. Inside, a chalkboard reads, "In honor of those who feed the soul." No signature, but you know who they mean. You're standing in the same abandoned lot again. The one where it all began. But it's not abandoned anymore. There's a garden now, raised beds, sunflowers, some kind of student-built greenhouse made from reclaimed glass. They call it Melissa's Patch. There's a plaque tucked in near the gate that says, "From what was buried, we chose to grow." You smile, not because everything's better, but because something is. It's been 2 years. Ava's taller now. She speaks more. Not a lot, but enough. She volunteers here on weekends, mostly with the tomato rows. She says the smell reminds her of the steakhouse kitchen, of her mom's hands, how they always smelled like basil and fire. Claire visits too. Miles is running now. He falls often, but always gets back up like he knows falling is part of the plan. You kneel beside a row of marigolds and notice a note wedged in the soil, folded 3 times, written in Ava's handwriting. "I still hear your voice when it rains." You don't touch it. Some things are meant to stay buried, in the right way. In the far distance, the prison still exists, still holds Ethan, but no one visits anymore. Not even journalists. He's a whisper, a barely remembered headline. And you know what? That's how it should be. Because this story was never his. It belonged to Melissa, to Ava, to Claire, to the people who stayed, who grew, who held pain and kept walking anyway. There's a quiet now in Denver, not the hush of fear, but the kind of calm that comes after the storm's last breath. In the wind chimes, in porch lights that still flicker at 7 p.m., in the way Ava locks the door gently every night just once, and knows that's enough. And when she dreams now, it's not always the dinner table. Sometimes it's the garden. And her mother's voice says, "We're still growing. Baby, keep going." And she does. So now, as the story settles in your chest, I want you to breathe. Breathe through the ache, through the weight of everything that happened, through the truth that evil doesn't always scream, it often smiles. And that grief, when worn long enough, becomes part of the skin. But so does strength, so does grace. Picture that garden one more time. Sunflowers brushing your shoulder, tomato vines wrapping around trellises like they're reaching for something better. The ground is soft, the air is warm, and no one is dragging anything behind them anymore. There's only growth here, only light. Let your breath slow. Let the noise of the world fade. Let the flickering porch light in your mind dim to a soft, steady hum. And if your heart is heavy, that's okay. You carried a story tonight. Now let it rest. Melissa's memory is safe. Ava's healing is in motion. And Claire, she's finally smiling again. But for the right reasons. No more tarps, no more lies, just the quiet return of peace. So close your eyes now. You made it through the whole story. And I'm proud of you. Sleep well.